Hey, good morning. I've had a lot of requests to get back on the YouTube and show some of my recipes. And my first request was from Michelle, and her favorite recipe of mine is the cream of mushroom soup. So I decided to do a series on soups. So I started with my cream of mushroom, and I've got my butter melting, and the pot's hot. I'm going to show you my ingredients and as I put them into the pot. I've got half a cup of butter in my stock pot melted, and to that I'm going to add 1 onion with about 3 cloves of garlic and give that a nice stir. And those are just going to get softened and not real caramelized, but just softened. Now to that I have about 6 cups of sliced mushrooms. I have white button mushrooms and cremini mushrooms, which are the darker but same size as button mushrooms, which are the more common ones. You can buy these pre-sliced. Makes this soup a lot easier and quicker. And give those onions a bit of a stir. So I'm going to add the mushrooms, and then you can also get ready half a cup of flour, 4 cups of stock. I'm using vegetable stock here, or you can use beef broth, and then half a cup of wine. And my spices or herbs are salt, pepper, and thyme. You can also add cream, but I'm going to omit that and let the roux, which is the butter and the flour, make this a creamy soup. And today's a perfect day for soup. It's turned cold here in Caldwell, Idaho. It's about 48 degrees and rainy, which we need desperately for our grass. So those onions have softened, just cooked for about a minute or so. So to that I'm going to add my 6 cups of mushrooms. Now these are going to reduce quite a bit. This looks like a lot of soup. Trying to do this with one hand. There we go. I'm going to let that cook down. And there's a lot of moisture in the mushrooms, so I'm not going to add any more stock, or you add my stock yet, until these are cooked down. So I'll get back to you when they're done. Okay, you can see how much the mushrooms have cooked down. They've softened quite a bit, and they let off a lot of moisture. And now I'm going to thicken this. I'm going to put in the flour, which when you're making a roux, which you do for lots of sauces, it's equal amounts of butter to flour. So I put in a quarter cup of butter, and now I have a half a cup here, and I'm just going to put in half of it. That's about half. And I'm just going to stir this around, and it's going to thicken up the butter and cook the flour off just a little bit. Take about a minute or so. And when I was deciding to do this recipe, I remembered a game my sister introduced to me very recently. It's called When You Were Young, What Made You Think Was Rich? Or when you were growing up and you were looking at your friends' homes. I know that's kind of comparing and not a good thing to do, but what did you think? Oh, that's what rich people do. For her, it was the drinking water spigot in your kitchen sink. She just got one of those installed and thought, oh, now I'm like the rich people. For me, one of the things, or many, were mushrooms. I always thought rich people ate mushrooms, probably because they were so exotic, and we were kind of a very meat and potatoes kind of family, and anything out of the ordinary, from corn and peas and carrots, anything different than that was what rich people ate. So cream of mushroom soup to me has always been a little exotic, even though it's a very simple, basic soup. So the flour's been cooked off. You're not going to get that floury taste. And before I add the stock, I'm going to put in about a half a teaspoon of pepper and about a teaspoon of salt. And now I'm going to add, my thyme. And that's going to be, I'm going to say, a teaspoon and a half. Give that a stir. And you can see on the bottom of the pan, the flour and butter mixture is kind of sticking to the pan. So what I'm going to do is called deglazing the pan. I'm going to take my red wine, which is acidic, pour that in, and with my spoon, I'm going to scrape up all those nice bottom parts that are, give it a nice crunchy, caramelized flavor to the soup. You can see, I don't know if you can see as I scrape the spoon over, that part of the pan that was caked over with the flour and the butter mixture is now gone because the acid in the wine has picked it up and incorporated into the juices. So it smells really good. You can see it's also thickened up really nicely. Okay, it smells almost like Christmas morning with the thyme and the wine. Not that we drink wine and thyme on Christmas morning, just that meal. Okay, now I'm going to add my stock. And we're going to let this cook down probably 20 minutes. Give that a good stir. We'll come back to it in 20 minutes. So it's been about 20 minutes. The mushrooms are cooked through, nice and soft. And I'm going to do something a little different. I've never done this before, but I saw it on a previous video. Couple that I follow on Facebook called Becca and Eamon. They're a couple from Toronto who traveled through Europe in a Sprinter van, and they're vegans, and occasionally they show recipes, and one of the recipes they showed was tomato soup, and they used cashews to make it creamy. So I'm going to try that. I pulled out from the pot and put into my high-speed mixer about half of the mushroom soup mix. Now I added, oh gosh, about a handful and a half, which is maybe 3/4 of a cup of raw cashew bits. So I'm going to put this on. Hold on, I need to turn my phone off. Okay, so I blended the cashews in the hot mushroom soup mix, and I only pulled out half because I want to retain that chunkiness of the mushroom pieces. So I'm going to add the creamed, doesn't look very appetizing, does it? Creamed cashewed plus the mushrooms back in, and voila, we've got cream of mushroom soup. And there you go. It's a very simple recipe. Looks delicious. Let's give it a taste. See if it needs any more salt, pepper, or thyme. That's delicious. So I hope you enjoy.